So this web to print is all about, I don't need web to print because my customers have never asked for it. This was very much a perspective that I had many, many years ago in relation to web to print. I was not an advocate of web to print. I thought web to print was simply something that providers such as EFI and indeed many others, it was just a way for them to make money and to sell printers technology that they don't need and indeed that they will never use. Now, of course, I've spoken, written, and I'm a true advocate of web to print, and I believe that a print business cannot function without having a web to print solution at their disposal. So this webinar is all about my own experience, my own transition as being a skeptic of web to print towards being an advocate of web to print technology. So what are we going to talk about? Number one, I'll explain to you why I didn't believe in web to print and how I overcame those beliefs. Number two, I always felt that web to print was something that my customers did not need because of the fact that I never understood what a web to print customer looks like. Because I did not understand what a web to print customer looked like, I therefore never had an appreciation for a customer that would benefit from a web to print platform. And for that reason, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what a web to print customer looks like. Number three, I'm going to talk to you about the classic Netflix versus Blockbuster example. Now, this is a favorite example of mine, and the reason for that, it really gives you an idea of what happens to a business when a business does not actively, ardently embrace technology. And of course, the benefits of hindsight. What have I learned from my own experiences and how you can avoid making the same mistakes that I did? Because it took a while. It took a while to become an advocate of web to print. And indeed, the business, while it's doing very well at the moment, it could be doing a lot better had I understood web to print sooner. So let's move on to talking a little bit about why I didn't believe in web to print. Well, number one, I did not understand what web to print actually was. And this was a fundamental problem that I had. So whilst I had a good e-commerce background, I had a technology background even, I did not understand what web to print actually was. And it's for that reason that I was not an advocate of web to print. And often, within our own organizations, we think we may know what web to print is, or indeed, we may not want to admit that we don't know what web to print is, and I was in that particular category. Number two, because I didn't know what web to print was, I had no idea what web to print had to offer my business. Number three, because I was unable to identify a web to print customer, I did not see any benefits for my own customers when it comes to web to print. And number four, as I said, I just thought that web to print is just another bandwagon, another thing that printers are being sold, and another thing that you'll probably end up never using. So how did I stop worrying about web to print, and how did I become someone who actually loves web to print customers, someone who's an advocate of web to print, and someone who trains printers on how to sell, deploy, and implement web to print? Well, number one, we lost business. So as an organization, I went to several pitch meetings or several discussions with customers, and I would go equipped with my bag of samples, as we all do, my business cards and my spot UV samples and my foiled samples, and my competitors instead went with a laptop, and they would go with a lovely platform that they would demonstrate. So there's me with my samples, and there's my competitors with their laptops, adding value to customers with technology, as opposed to me. I was deemed to have a very backward traditional print offering. And there was a clear differentiating factor. And when you attend enough of these meetings, or when you try to play at a higher level of print tenders or such like, this experience was a prevailing theme. We were unable to win big business. And when we dug a little bit deeper, we realized that the competition was going in with a technology offering primarily, followed by a print offering, whereas we were going in with a print offering without a technology offering. The result, well, we lost business, but having said that, eventually we did implement a web-to-print solution. And in fact, after we implemented the web-to-print solution, we started to win tenders on the basis of our technology. So let's move on to dealing with some of the challenges that I had as a skeptic of web-to-print. Well, the first thing I shared with you earlier was I did not understand what web-to-print was. Now, for the purpose of this audience, I know that we have a very diverse crowd. Some of you guys might know what web-to-print is. Others may not know what web-to-print is. But the fact is, I considered myself as someone who was experienced, who knew the print industry, who knew the technology industry, but yet I did not know what web-to-print actually was. So I'm going to very quickly share with you what web-to-print actually is, in case you're in a similar boat as me, and perhaps you may not be so familiar with what web-to-print is. Number one, web-to-print quite simply enables your customers to order printed collateral online. Now, when I say your customers, I mean the customers that you currently engage with. Often, when we think about web-to-print, we identify customers as being the B2C customer who is not a customer at the moment, and we tend to target those without focusing on our own customers. Web-to-print, in the most basic sense, enables your existing customers to order web-to-print or to order print online via a platform, essentially a print Amazon, if you like. That's your customers. And yes, indeed, you can open the platform up to prospective customers, but primarily we're talking about customers within your own portfolio. Number two, I don't know how many of you guys attending today actually sell business cards, but I'm sure you're all very familiar with the amount of drama surrounding business cards when it comes to organizations and indeed print companies. Your customer will send a CSV file to your designer. Your designer will start templating the business card. They'll then send the proof to your customer. Your customer suddenly has forgotten how to spell their name, so then they send a revision, and this ongoing cycle continues. Now, where does web-to-print add value in that scenario? Well, it enables customers to take control of things like business card ordering. They can log on to the platform. They can change their name, for example, change the phone number, save the file, order it themselves. So what we've created with web-to-print is a frictionless ordering and processing system. Customers can order printed collateral without having to engage with account managers. You almost empower your customer. So that's just an overview, a very quick overview of web-to-print is, and I've tried to give you an example of when it comes to business cards of how web-to-print can add tremendous value. And interestingly, I've been to a lot of meetings where customers have said to me, our existing partner, our existing printer provides us with an ordering platform. Now, clearly it's not a very good platform because when they see our platform, they're wowed and they want to do business with us. But this is not uncommon technology when it comes to the ordering of business cards, which incidentally is a very good way into an organization, because if you start printing business cards, number one, you get to know who the key decision makers are. And number two, when you start with business cards, you can expand the portfolio to leaflets, to booklets, and to many other things. And of course, the fundamental important thing about web-to-print for your own business, and this is important because once I understood what web-to-print is, I didn't really have an appreciation of what web-to-print had to offer my business. Well, this is what it has to offer you. Number one, it offers streamlined efficiency. It automates front-end and back-end processes. So rather than going to an account manager, a customer can simply log on online, customize their business card, save it, proof it, order it. It goes through straight to our machines or to my machines, and it gets dispatched. So I have eliminated this whole manual ordering process, which actually saves me time. It gives more flexibility to my customers, and it means that my account managers can focus on account managing as opposed to order taking. Many a times we call our teams account managers, salespeople, but in reality they're not. In reality, they spend 50% of their time account managing. They spend 50% of their time selling. They spend 50% of their time growing the business. And the other 50% is engaged in drama, engaged in order taking, engaged in order processing, engaged in undertaking the work which can be automated, and it can be automated through a web-to-print platform. So that's the benefit that web-to-print has to offer your business. And that's something I didn't understand. You see, I didn't understand what web-to-print was. I, therefore, did not understand what web-to-print had to offer my business. And the first point is automation, which saves a huge amount of time. Point number two is that people come and go, but tech generally will remain. Now, how many of us have had the experience where we see that an individual who was our main print orderer within an organization, be it a marketing manager or a head of design or something similar, that person leaves, and suddenly we find that we lose the account? I'm sure many of us have found ourselves in that particular predicament. In fact, I tend to win a lot of business because I find that when marketing managers leave organizations that we're involved with, we don't lose the account, but they take my company with them to the next company that they go to. They remove the incumbent printer who 9 times out of 10 doesn't have web to print, and I get to install my web to print platform into that organization. And interestingly, this only happens when the incumbent has not offered web to print to the customer. And I think that's a really important point that I'd like you to note, that as a printer, someone who plays in this industry, when a marketing manager leaves, they take us with them. But we only tend to be able to close when there's not a web-to-print system in place. When there is a web-to-print system in place, 9 times out of 10, what we tend to find when there is a web-to-print system in place, it's very, very difficult to penetrate that account. But thankfully for us, perhaps not for our competitors, we've generally found that the marketing manager moves and there is no web-to-print platform, and we acquire another customer. People come and go, but generally tech will remain. Why is this the case? The reason this is the case is because when you're new to an organization, as a marketing manager, you want to make your move, you want to leave your mark. And the first victim of that is the printer, because either you can moan about quality, or you can moan about price, or you can moan about a lack of automation being web to print. So it's a quick win. The printer tends to go first because it's a quick win for that incumbent marketing manager. And the reason it's a quick win, because the barrier to entry is very low. If there's no overriding technology managing that relationship between the customer and between your business, between the printer and the customer, if there isn't that underlying technology, then what you will find is a barrier is low and you can easily get knocked out. But when you have your technology inside a customer's business, you've created something that we call in e-commerce stickiness, right? As you can see from that slide, that is very much what you've created. So that customer is not going to go anywhere. And that marketing manager will be very reluctant to remove technology because it's easy to knock out a printer, but it's very difficult to take an organization and start dismantling technology that everyone uses, that everyone is familiar with and that everyone is comfortable with. And that is why it's very important that you have that technology within your customers' businesses, as it enables you to have that edge, and it also ring fences the customer, and it will ensure that you retain that customer as well. So introducing Web2Print creates customer stickiness. Now again, I was not familiar with this as a printer. I just wasn't present. I was in denial that this is a reality, and I only realized how difficult it was when new business opportunities came and when I was competing against companies that, number one, were pitching Web2Print, or when I was competing against companies who already had Web2Print in place. Very, very reluctant to move. So one of the challenges that I had, and I'm sure many of us have this challenge as well, I didn't actually know what a Web2Print customer looked like. So I understood what Web2Print was. It's great. It's going to add value to my business. It's going to help me automate. It's wonderful. But what does a Web2Print customer look like? And because I never understood what a Web2Print customer looks like, I found that I held this belief that, well, perhaps therefore my customers don't need Web2Print. My customers have never asked for Web2Print. Well, customers will not ask for something that they themselves are not familiar with, right? A customer is not going to ask for a foiled business card if they're not familiar with what foiling is. You don't know what you don't know. And unfortunately, sometimes we tell ourselves this story, well, my customers don't want Web2Print, and therefore I'm not going to invest in Web2Print until it's too late. Because by the time that we realize that the customer does want Web2Print, it isn't us as the provider who have introduced the customer to Web2Print. It's our competitor. Our competitor has introduced the customer to Web2Print. Now they want Web2Print, but now we're competing against someone who, a company who has gone in on a Web2Print premise and has trashed us for not actually introducing Web2Print to our client. And again, I've had this experience. I've used this experience before with a very prominent NASDAQ and FTSE or NASDAQ company. And when I went in, it was a huge company, by the way, one of the world's biggest companies, let's put it that way. And when we went to meet them, I was just shocked at the fact that the current incumbent did not have Web2Print. And the moment we went in with our demonstration, with our laptop, and we said, look, this is how we do business, the customer was like, I don't understand why my current Web2Print provider, my current print provider did not provide me this tool. And that for me was music to my ears, And I sort of took a view, we're very forward thinking and we're very technologically astute, and not all printers are. And it just gave me all the ammunition and all the FUD that I needed to win this business. Did we win the business? Absolutely. Did the company spend 7 figures with us? They did. Do we make a lot of money? We do. Have we gained the return on investment from our Web2Print investment? Tenfold at the minimum, if not more. So understand what a Web2Print customer looks like. And here we are. So here on this slide, I've painted a little scenario, and we're going to go through this scenario together so that we can understand what a Web2Print customer looks like. So let's take a nice hypothetical example of an existing Web2Print customer. And in fact, work with me here. Start off on the left where you see the United Kingdom, which is, well, I'm sure you can all see what the United Kingdom is, hopefully. So when you look at that, the customer, this hypothetical customer, okay, that I'm dealing with at the moment. So let's understand that this customer at this point in time is doing business with us, okay? They're doing business with us. They're based in the United Kingdom, and this customer has 300 offices. All right, so this is a good customer. This is a customer that I don't want to lose. They've got 300 offices, right? That's a lot of print. And each office orders print via a central marketing team. So now this customer has a central marketing team So, there's some good printed collateral that I do benefit from. Okay, they're spending 6 figures with me. It's a good customer. Now, what happens? All of these, so the offices go to the central marketing team, and the central marketing team take down all the orders, the business cards, the leaflets, the brochures. It's a very important part of their job. And then what does this marketing team do? This marketing team come to the printer and they pick up the phone and say, right, office XYZ needs, 500 business cards times 10 types. Office 2 needs this. They send a lovely spreadsheet through. I process the order. Then I give the person a call and say, yep, your order's on its way, and I send them tracking information. And this is how this lovely account is handled. Now, the orders, they generally tend to be the same thing. It's either leaflets, or it's business cards, or it's brochures. It's generally the same stuff that they order again and again and again. I've got a good team of account managers, or should we say order takers, who are taking all these orders. It's a brilliant account. I think everything is going wonderfully. Now, that is a web-to-print customer. Why is it a web-to-print customer? Number one, they've got multiple offices, which means that multiple individuals can log in from anywhere around the globe, or indeed anywhere around the United Kingdom, and they can order the printed collateral online. Multiple offices generally means multiple stakeholders. And where there are multiple stakeholders brings opportunity for a web-to-print platform. Each office orders print via a central marketing team. Well, there's no reason why each office can't order print via a central marketing portal, right? And number 3, the marketing team places orders. Well, in the case of web-to-print, the offices can place orders themselves, and there can be an approval system to the marketing team if need be. And given the fact that all these orders are normally repeat orders of the same type, we can upload all of these items onto our web-to-print platform, and we can actually have an online repository, if you like, when it comes to the print Amazon that I referred to earlier. So I've taken you from a journey. I hope I've taken you on a bit of a journey from what is a good customer, but then ordering manually, to what is a customer that can be automated, a customer that would benefit from web-to-print. And of course, for me, things are going brilliantly. 300 offices, central marketing team, an account team within my organization. But the fact is, it would not be difficult for another company to come in, to install web-to-print within this organization and win the business and automate everything. Because the customer does not know what they don't know. They're used to working this way, so they think it's an optimal way of working until someone shows them otherwise. And let it not be that the competitor is the one to show your customer the better way of doing things. Now, what is the advantage to the customer when it comes to web-to-print? And again, the previous slide talks about this. Talks about automation, talks about being able to order from anywhere at any time. These are some of the benefits to the customer. But there's additional benefits. Customers can use their own templates to make sure that all their printed materials stay on brand. Now, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but I've often had this experience where I go to a meeting, particularly with the larger companies, and everyone gives me a business card. And everyone's business card is different. The margins are different, the font is different, even the way it's cut is sometimes slightly different. The size is different. Why does that happen? The reason that happens is because either, number one, the customer is using multiple web-to-print providers, or number 2, they're just using different printers, or number 3, different offices are doing their own thing. And I've come across this numerous times, right? Sometimes you get 300 offices ordering manually via one printer. Sometimes you get 300 offices who are all doing their own thing, ordering via a number of different printers, which again just goes to show the advantages of web-to-print, because if there's one office, you can generally bring all of the printing. If you play your cards right, you can bring all of the printing under your one platform. Yes, I have come across numerous web-to-print platforms in the past where I've gone into a business and they're using many different web-to-print platforms, but I have been able to consolidate all of those platforms onto one by showing them that we're able to do that consolidation and we're able to outsource to different partners, say in different countries and such like. The aim, where possible, is to win all of the print work and bring it all onto a centralized platform. Number two, the biggest benefit for the customer that often we don't see or we don't recognize is that web-to-print brings control to the customer's fingertips. They can view the platform, they can view the entire catalog of products via the platform. If they need to reorder, they can go to their order history, they can track budgets, they can look at all the options available to them in one place, as opposed to having to either browse through a catalog or call an account manager. So there's a lot of benefits when it comes to customers and web-to-print. And again, I didn't have an appreciation of this. And the reason I didn't have an appreciation of it is because, number one, I never really knew what a web-to-print customer looked like. And hopefully I've now sort of given you an idea of what a web-to-print customer looks like. But number two, I didn't really appreciate the benefit that my customers would gain from web-to-print. Now, in addition to the brand consistency, I never had an appreciation about the flexibility. And this is very, very important. When there are multiple offices, especially when there's multiple offices globally, there are different time zones. And quite often, we find that customers won't order because if you're in the States and you're ordering from the UK, you have to wait the following day because of the time difference. The advantage with web-to-print is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to your customer. If they like to work weekends, they can order printed collateral over the weekend, and it puts control in their hands. And again, for a lot of the multinationals that we deal with, this is absolutely imperative, and it could cost you an account if you're not, either you're open 24/7 with account managers available 24/7, which I haven't really come across, or you provide an online portal that is flexible and available to your customers. Again, I never really knew this was a problem until we lost customers, until we found that certain multinationals their print spend was dropping, and that is because they needed things faster than we could deliver it because we didn't have web-to-print, and of course our competitors did, or indeed our customers wanted it. Now, one of the fundamental problems that I also had is, all right, well, I understand what web-to-print is. I get it. I get what web-to-print is. I understand the benefit that it's going to have to my organization. I've gone through some of those benefits earlier on in the webinar. Yep, you accept that. It's all great. You understand the benefit that web-to-print would bring to your customers. So, you're sold. You really do like web-to-print. Again, I went through this journey. But then what does the web-to-print customer look like? And how do I identify a web-to-print customer? And what do I do once I've identified a web-to-print customer? What is the internal process that needs to change? And this is very important because often we might invest in something, but then we don't put in the process to make that investment realize its true value within our own organization. And again, for me, this was a real touchy point because I really never knew how to close a web-to-print customer. So let's talk about that a little bit, and we'll just recap on the experience. So number one, let's assume that, an inquiry comes in via Salesforce or whatever CRM we're using, or via the phone. And the inquiry is, I'm looking for a new supplier to repeat printing of our business cards. That's the inquiry that comes in. Now, if you haven't got web-to-print, or you don't appreciate what web-to-print does, or you don't know what web-to-print is, you're going to take what I call the traditional approach. You're going to call the client, okay? And the client's going to say, yeah, fantastic, this is what I need, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, you're going to decide, well, ideally, I would hope that you're going to meet with the client. Okay, you meet with the client, you build rapport, they like you, you've taken your bag of samples, it's really exciting, and they email you a sample, of their business card. In turn, you send through an initial quote. You might even, post them out a bespoke sample, depending on how you manage your client relationship. Customer approves. They start ordering. They start ordering by email. They start sending you spreadsheets. They start calling you up when they need new business cards, and the cycle continues. You've got a new customer. It's great. But that customer that we've just identified or spoken about is a web-to-print customer. And therefore, there is a better way of dealing with that customer. What we do is we use a new approach, and that's the approach I'm going to talk you through now. The first thing we have to ask ourselves, or the first thing our sales team need to ask themselves is this a web-to-print customer? Does it tick all the boxes that we spoke about earlier? Are there multiple stakeholders? Is there repeat ordering? Is it the same kind of thing that they're ordering? Can files be easily uploaded online? Now, can pricing be fixed according to units? Is it an easy print sale? If it is, then that is a web-to-print sale, and therefore we must adapt the way in which we deal with this client. So we call the client, we understand what they want, and then we meet with the client. But when we meet with the client, rather than pulling out our bag of lovely samples, we pull out our laptop and we demonstrate to them the way that they are going to order from us. Now, this is very, very important that we understand this point. We demonstrate to the client. We almost tell the client how they're going to order, and we don't give them a choice. And this is the way that we do business. And then once we've demoed our web-to-print platform, we show them the samples and we do all the rest of it. But then rather than quoting and ordering online, they will start ordering via the web-to-print platform, and you will have already pre-uploaded your prices and such like. And it's very important that we understand the difference in approach. Now, have I come across a customer that has said to me, I don't want to order via an online platform. I'd much rather do it, the traditional way. I have not come across such a scenario. And that's because we generally don't get, we don't give customers a choice. And you've got to understand, this is the way this is the way the world of e-commerce works. In the current COVID-19 crisis, what we're observing is that e-commerce companies have actually been the companies that have fared the best compared to others, right? So that's an important point to note. The traditional B2B has struggled, but those who are in B2C have generally been able to pivot their business very easily via their online platforms, add COVID-related products very easily, create awareness. So e-commerce is very much an important facet of growing a business, but also you don't get Amazon giving you 15 different ways to order, right? It's just one way of doing things. And bear in mind, the reason Amazon is so successful is because we all use it. Everyone is familiar with Amazon. We all order from Amazon. And because we're familiar with the Amazon ordering experience, when we transpose that experience to the sphere of web-to-print, your clients aren't going to resist because they're already familiar with the experience. And that is why, if you don't have web-to-print, that is why your competition have that one-up on you, because they're calling to the listening of that user who already knows how e-commerce ordering works, and they're just taking that customer on a journey. Meanwhile, you're going down the route of, let's do things the manual way, and that isn't going to work for the long term. And again, just to emphasize, if you don't have a web-to-print platform at the moment, I would encourage you to look into it. I'd encourage you to make that investment. And the reason is because so long as you're not doing this, and so long as you're not talking to your customers about automation in e-commerce, your competitors are. And there will come a point where you'll have to justify to your customers as to why you chose not to make their life easier. And that's when you do risk losing them. I've been there. I've had that conversation. It's a very difficult conversation to have. So a couple of questions that you need to ask yourself, okay, based on a previous scenario. If you look at the traditional way of doing things, or the traditional client to whom you're not offering technology for whatever reason, ask yourself some of these questions. Number one, beyond print, what do I bring to the table? How easy is it for a competitor to win this account? What do they offer that I don't? And if my contact within the marketing team leaves, is that account still secure? Ask yourself these questions and then ask yourself whether or not web to print will strengthen your position. And it's extremely important that we distinguish between a purchaser and a customer. A purchaser is someone who will just order one off, who will just have a temporary need and you fill that need. But a customer is someone that has loyalty, that wants to be loyal and that wants to continuously order from you. How easy are you making it as a print provider for that customer to come back? How easy are you making it for that print customer when they're already familiar with Amazon and other e-commerce sites? The key takeaway that I like to share with you is never take a customer loyalty for granted. They'll only be loyal for so long because they don't know what the competition is offering. The moment customers feel that you could have made their life easier, but you chose not to because you don't want to make an investment or you don't want to invest in technology, that loyalty will often dwindle. So loyalty only goes so far. Don't get comfortable on the basis of perceived loyalty because it will waver once they see that the grass is greener on the other side. And the other thing is that as printers, it's not down to us to just sell. We don't just want to sell to our customers. We want to keep our customers. And web to print enables you to keep your customer. And that's fundamentally important. Now, let's talk about new technology. Now, it's quite interesting because often we resist new technology in our organizations. We don't want to have the conversation, right? This web to print, it's all a load of nonsense. It's not going to get anywhere. Customers, I've been in business for 100 years. I've built this business for so long, and I'm going to continue going. Web to print is not going to make a difference to me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If it were to make a difference to me, my business would not continue to be growing as it is. And we convinced ourselves that we are sort of amazing and we're untouchable. And therefore, we make a mistake. And we make the same mistake that Blockbuster did. Now, the Netflix co-founder, interestingly, in the year 2000, went to meet, okay? He went to meet the CEO of Blockbuster. So Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, went to meet the CEO of Blockbuster, John Anticchio, okay? And he proposed a merger. Netflix at the time was at $50 million. Blockbusters was in the billions, okay? In the year 2000. Now, again, Blockbuster's view was, well, we're doing well. We've got, thousands of stores. Things are good. Why on earth would we adopt this Netflix model that's technology-based, that's, an online, on-demand platform? We're doing well. We don't need to embrace change. And essentially, it's very interesting because when you actually read about this experience, the Netflix CEO, Reed Hastings, says that the Blockbuster CEO actually laughed at him, right? He was smirking. He wanted to just burst out laughing as in, what a load of nonsense. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with Blockbuster. Blockbuster has one store left, and there's a picture of that store on this slide. Now, of course, Netflix is valued at $203 billion. Now, at the time, there was a resistance to take on new technology. It was dismissed because Blockbuster was comfortable with the status quo. Things were going well. It did not feel the need to embrace technology. Today, there's only one Blockbuster store left. Netflix has more or less taken over and is now challenging more than just Blockbuster, but is challenging movie making and other areas too. So the takeaway is, do not become the Blockbuster of the print world. Embrace technology, acknowledge the opportunity before it's too late. So, of course, the benefits of hindsight. Well, when I look back at my own experience, I never appreciated the things that I've shared with you in this particular presentation. I had no idea of what Web to Print had to offer and how I could offer the product to my customers. And as a result, the growth of the company suffered up until such time that I was willing to embrace change. And indeed, Web to Print providers didn't really make it easier, because Web to Print providers spoke about their product, but not how I could apply it to my customers. So to conclude, before we get to our Q&A session, here are 7 considerations to take away. Number 1, understand what Web to Print is. Don't just pretend to understand it. And I hope this webinar provided some information in relation to that. Number 2, arrange demonstrations with Web to Print providers and challenge them. Don't let them just talk about their own technology and how great it is. Tell them, how will Web to Print help my customer base? Explain your customer base to them. Explain your challenges to them, and let them explain to you in the context of your business and not their product as to what value technology brings to your business. Profile existing customers. As I showed during this presentation, are they a Web to Print customer? Arrange meetings with them. Maybe maybe even engage with your Web to Print provider to help you with some of these meetings, so that you can gain the confidence of what is on offer. Filter incoming inquiries by Web to Print. Have a procedure and a process. Is this a Web to Print customer? Do they order regularly? Very, very important. Educate your sales teams about Web to Print. Have role plays where they're selling Web to Print. And of course, analysis is paralysis. If you're listening to this right now and you're still in any doubt as to whether or not you need to invest in Web to Print or engage in pivoting your business towards technology, well, I think you're engaging in analysis is paralysis. You need to make that investment and start pivoting your business today, and believe that it can make a change to your business. And of course, the final slide is an ebook that I've written, which is all about the definitive Web to Print sales manual, how to effectively pitch and close Web to Print sales. You can download it on the link which is on screen, and I'll paste it in the group as well. And that will give you an idea of how you can train your sales team when it comes to Web to Print, and how they can effectively pitch Web to Print, which once you've made the investment, which I'm sure that you will, I hope that you will after this webinar, and see the same success that I've seen in doing this for my own business. Thank you very much indeed. And Aaron, over to you.